Do you ever feel like you're working so hard in your business every day, but for some reason it's not showing up in sales? Or maybe you are so worried about talking to someone when they're finally interested in you that you forget what to say and you don't think that you're actually translating the benefits. Well, in today's video, I'm breaking down 3 essential steps for you to streamline your sales process. By the end of this video, you're gonna know how to set actionable sales goals that you can manage and hit, create a winning pitch, and onboard new clients seamlessly. Let's dive in. Hi, if you're new here, my name is Christina. I'm the owner of Treya Digital, a digital marketing agency based out of Austin, Texas. I have been doing a 7-day YouTube challenge that I'm calling 7 Days to Build That Business. We are on day 5. The goal of this challenge was for me to show up every single day for 7 days consistently and share actionable tips specifically for sales and marketing your business if you're new to business or you're an aspiring entrepreneur and you haven't really done this before. So I really hope that everything I've shared with you has been helpful. Please make sure before we dive into this, go back and watch the first 4 videos because every single one of these videos ties in together. So in order for you to have a really clear, streamlined sales process, you've got to be able to have all the other things that we talked about squared away and ready to go. If you also haven't yet, please download the checklist below. Basically like a bullet point list for you to know exactly what steps you need to take during this process. So it keeps you organized and keeps you following along throughout the whole 7-day journey. So now when it comes to a sales process, I have been in this industry for over a decade and I have been specifically on the sales side most of that time. In order to have a streamlined sales process, you've got to know what the client or the prospect is expecting at every step of the journey. You also need to be able to communicate everything that you offer them in a very clear, concise way and make sure that you stand out against competitors or other objections that they may have. Sometimes people get really tripped up on this because they don't want to sound too salesy. And I promise if you're doing this right, you're not going to sound salesy, you're going to sound beneficial for that specific ideal client that you've got in mind. But before we can even talk about our pitch and our script and everything else that we need to do, we need to have clear sales goals. Now, a lot of times people just have a revenue goal, like I want to hit 100,000 or 1 million, but how are you going to get there? These are specific metrics that I have used throughout my entire career, and I think that they're really important for you, especially if you're starting out. I do recommend keeping track of this on a simple Excel spreadsheet, nothing too fancy here, and there's only a couple that you really need to keep in mind. And when you're going through these metrics, the most important thing about them is that if something is not going right, if it's not going the way you thought it would go, you've got to look at the numbers to be able to fine tune and tweak. And the numbers will not lie, the numbers will find the problem for you. So the first thing that you need to do is track your show ratio. This is the ratio of how many people schedule a call with you and actually show up to the call. You'd be surprised that sometimes people will book a time on their calendar and life gets in the way, things get busy, and then eventually they may reschedule at first, but then eventually it just falls off and then they never, reply to you or whatever. So when they go dark, you have to kind of figure out where you're gonna put them and how to move on to the next person. Number 2 is your close ratio. This is the percentage of people that are actually turning into paying customers. So obviously the people that show up to the call are probably more likely to close, but that doesn't mean everyone will, right? They may just come to this call to get some free strategy help, maybe get your pricing since you probably won't have it on your website. So we need to figure out if our sales aren't where we need them to be. Where is the problem? Is it that we're not getting enough leads to schedule calls, or are we getting so many leads, but not a lot of them are showing up? Maybe we need to put in a reminder email or a reminder text to get them on the call. Or maybe we're having a ton of people show up, so we're not really qualifying the right way, and we're just getting a lot of junk, and we're filling up our calendars with people who aren't serious buyers. So these numbers will tell the perfect story for you so you know where to focus all of your attention on and fix those problems early on. The last piece of this is your average deal size and your lifetime client value. You may not know these right off the bat. Obviously, it may take some time, but there are certain things that we can control within this number. So your average deal size is gonna be how much your pricing is set at. And if you have, for example, in my situation, I've got a 3-month minimum, so I know that I'll take my monthly rate times it by 3. Or if you have a client that sticks with you long term and they're with you for 12 months, then you'll know that when you get people in, they actually become lifelong clients of yours. And these are important numbers to know so that you can figure out where to tweak your sales process, or even just tweak your product accordingly. And now we're gonna craft the perfect pitch and the perfect proposal to make sure that you are closing all of these deals that are showing up and talking to you. There are 3 important things that you need to know when you're building a pitch. Number 1, are you communicating the right thing? Know what your client is struggling with, know their pain points, know what their business goals are. I usually will not even talk for the first half of our sessions because I want to hear about them. I want to know everything that they are going through, what their history has been with other marketing agencies. I want to know what they're struggling with at the moment, what their schedule looks like, and what their dreams are and what they want in the future. So I'm trying to get them to open up, get them more comfortable to share with me everything about them so that I can figure out how to tailor my messaging and what I have to say accordingly. And so I think you should definitely do this. A lot of people will put together a nice little PowerPoint presentation and it's very cookie cutter, and they do this for every single client that they talk to. But when you do this, you're not listening, you're just talking about yourself, and you're not making it about the client, you're making it about yourself, your company, what you've got to offer, and all of that. So we really want to focus on them. So know who you're talking to and know what they're struggling with. If you go back and watch day 4, we talked all about the customer journey, and this is where you're going to get that information so that you can craft the perfect message. Number 2 is you want to highlight what unique selling proposition you have against other companies. We can't be ignorant and think that they're only talking to us. Chances are they've probably seen other marketing agencies or they're in the process of talking to them. So what makes you different? What makes you stand out? Think about those before you even get on the call and make that the sole focus so that they can walk away from the call, and if they don't remember anything, they'll remember that. And finally, make sure that whenever you do your pitch, you do have a very clear call to action. What this looks like is telling them exactly what you want them to do or what you want to happen after this call. After we hang up today, I want you to look over my proposal and we will have a follow-up call and discuss any questions or concerns that you may have. Or the call to action may be, I'm going to send you an email with this information. Can you send me back this? So make it a little bit more collaborative, put some onus on the client to provide some information for you so that it becomes a little more of a collaborative experience. Okay, so here is the part that gets a little bit stressful for people, but crafting that perfect pitch. I personally think that not every pitch is perfect, but every pitch has to be perfect for that client. You're not gonna have the same thing that you say every single time. Again, this comes back to listening to what they have to say. If you can listen to them, you'll be able to know exactly right off the bat what matters to them and what they value so that you can highlight those features about yourself. So during this call, I usually like to schedule 60 minutes on the calendar. 60 minutes is a long time. However, we can always cut it short if we need to. But I found that 30 minutes is just not enough time because what I do for the first 30 minutes is let the client talk. Yep. I don't say much. I start off the conversation by saying, thank you so much for being here, for taking time out of your busy schedule to meet with me. Today, what I want to talk about and focus on is you. I want to focus on your challenges, what your experience has been with other marketing agencies or doing marketing in-house. I want to get to know exactly where you're coming from so I can recommend the best tailored solution for you and your business. That way, that kind of opens it up and allows them to get a little more comfortable because they realize, hey, this time is for them and they're the ones that matter, not me. And so I get them to open up, tell me everything about themselves. That usually takes about 20 to 30 minutes. Every now and then I'll jump in and ask a question or agree with them or bring my own opinion into the mix in my experience. But really, they get to drive that conversation. Once they're kind of done telling me what their goals are and what their needs are, there are a couple of things that I always make sure that I address on that call with them there at that moment. Number 1 is getting a timeline from them as to when they are interested in starting. Are they just kind of shopping around right now with no specific need? Or is there something time sensitive that we need to be aware of that has a strict deadline? And if that's the case, like a product launch or the holidays and Black Friday or things like that, we need to get the ball rolling and we're gonna make this call today a little bit more action focused. The other thing that I want to know is their budget. So figuring out during the conversation a nice way to kind of bring that up can be a challenge for a lot of people. What I usually recommend is making it a very casual thing. What I like to say is, I can go back to the table and I can give you the world, but the world is gonna cost a lot. So please let me know what you're thinking so that I can come prepared and I'm not giving you some sticker shock at the end of this conversation, right? That way they're a little bit more, they kind of laugh and they're like, oh yeah, you're right, I can do everything, but maybe we need to fine tune it a little bit and we pick a set of offerings or a package that makes sense for them to start start out with. And lastly, the most important part of this pitch, when I get to talk, right, after they've shared what they have to say, is I want to tell a story. I want to tell a story of either another client that's dealt with the same thing or that I've had a conversation about the same thing with, and tell the story of why the company got started. Stories are what people will remember. And if we go back to day one, if you haven't seen that video, go watch it, but we talked all about the brand identity, and I really highlighted storytelling and having a message, a purpose behind your brand and your entire identity as a company. That needs to play in every single part of your marketing, including your proposal. If you're able to showcase why the company got started, what was the need that you found, what's the gap in the market that you're helping solve, that's something they're gonna remember. And it's a lot better to use that information in a sales pitch than being like
10 blog posts and 20 YouTube videos.
Like, yeah, okay, that's great. But if we can emotionally connect to them, we're gonna have a much better chance of success with them. Lastly, what I like to do on these pitches as a call to action is I would send them a proposal and I would have another call scheduled as a follow-up within the coming days. I don't let a whole week pass if I can help it. I make sure that they get to see my face one more time. And at that point, that's when the negotiation happens. That's when I get to hear their concerns, whether it's pricing or timeline or whatever the case is, and I can address it on that follow-up call a little bit more in detail. If they do show up to that follow-up call, you know that they are pretty serious. And at that point, we can really talk about next steps. On that call, I would tell them how the onboarding process is gonna go, what the contract information looks like, what those payment terms look like. All of that needs to happen on that follow-up call. And I think that that's a really good place to begin that relationship, because you don't wanna put all of that in your pitch call. That pitch call really needs to be about the needs and whether or not we can fulfill those needs to the client. The second call is more of the logistics, more of the like tangible how-tos and what the scheduling will look like moving forward. I think giving you that information is a lot more effective than me just giving you a script, because when you give a script to someone, one, they're gonna have to memorize it, and two, it's not tailored to every situation. But if you just remember, make them an hour long, first 30 minutes, have the client talk about themselves, listen to everything that they have to say, come to the table with a nice story that makes sense for that client so that they can be able to emotionally connect with you, and always schedule a follow-up call to go over the logistics and pricing negotiations. The third part of this is having a very seamless onboarding process. After that second follow-up call, now we gotta figure out all of the paperwork and all of that stuff. So on that second call, you're ideally gonna have the contract with them in hand. You're gonna have them sign it. You're gonna collect payment. I do recommend at least 50% up front. If you can do all of it up front, that's ideal. Whether it's credit card or invoicing, have some flexibility. Allow your client to have multiple ways of paying you so that it makes it easy for them. And once you have that, you can schedule your first round of calls. And I like to have a call on a weekly basis and communicate daily through email. That way we are always getting to see each other's face. We're getting to build that relationship a little bit. We know at what point of the process we're on right now, and they can tweak along the way. And if they have their team with them every single week, it makes it a lot easier to address concerns early on and make sure that we are sticking to timelines the way we need to. I do recommend that once you collect some form of payment from them, you give them something immediate. So obviously you may not be able to provide them, the actual product yet, because that may take some time to develop. I like to do this as like an onboarding packet. So it'll be like a PDF or a little booklet that will have all of the steps, all the expectations laid out in front of them, any FAQs and common concerns that may pop up, just anything that will give them a better story of what that relationship is going to look like moving forward with you. And they have something to work with. You can also give them templates or best practice guides or anything of value that you consider makes sense within your industry. And then once you have that call done, you're ready for the kickoff. And in that kickoff call is when you get all that other information. In my scenario, that would look like providing a creative brief and getting all of their assets and making sure that, from a branding perspective, we have everything we need to go to the table and start designing the things that they need designed. Figure out what that looks like for your industry, for your business, but always have the next call on the books. So we don't have to figure it out via email, or don't put it in the hands of the client to go to your Calendly link and book time every single week on the calendar. Have something that's recurring every week so that you have a routine to get in touch with them. That's really important, just to make it as easy as possible for them. And if you're working with other companies, you gotta do that because they've got a million things that they're juggling at one time, and you're just another vendor outside of the scope of their internal team. So you need to make sure that this is as easy and seamless as possible. Trust me, I know that pitches are scary. I have been doing them for over a decade. They do get easier with time. Once you stop realizing that you have to do things a certain way and you just listen to the client, it becomes a lot easier to solve their problems and make them want to buy from you. If you haven't done so yet, please check out day 1 through 4. And tomorrow we are going to be talking about our content marketing plan, which to me, I'm the most excited about. And so I hope you stick around. We're creating an entire 90-day content marketing plan in just one short video. Yep. So let me know if you have any thoughts, questions, comments down below. I hope that you subscribe to this channel as we go through this process. And I hope that this is inspiring you to take action and create the business of your dreams. Thanks so much, you guys. I will see you tomorrow for day 6.